The handwriting is unmistakable, but in any case, the signature confirms that these letters were written by Princess Diana.
Buried for decades, a letter from Diana to Prince William has finally come to light, and its message is nothing short of haunting.
These failings not only let my mother down and my family down, they let the public down too.
Written in a moment of heartbreak and clarity, it reveals her hopes, her fears, and the truth she couldn't say aloud.
It's Diana's unstable, and Diana's mentally imbalanced. You have so much pain inside yourself that you try and hurt yourself on the outside.
But why did she write it? What truths was she trying to protect William from? And why is its message more powerful today than ever before? Let's find out. A secret unearthed. It started with a quiet listing in a London auction house, but what it revealed was nothing short of historic. Installed inside an unassuming collection of handwritten notes was something no one expected. A lost letter from Princess Diana to her son, Prince William. Not a public statement, not a royal formality, but a deeply personal message, written in Diana's own hand and hidden for decades. The letter came from the estate of Violet Collison, a longtime housekeeper and trusted confidant of the Spencer family. For years, Collison had worked behind the scenes, discreet, loyal, and close enough to Diana to become a silent witness to the most personal moments of her life. Among her carefully kept belongings, the letter surfaced quietly, as if it had been waiting for the right time to speak. The public had long believed Diana's most personal words were lost to time. But then, a quiet discovery rewrote everything. Sotheby's handled the auction without spectacle, slipping the letter into the catalog with little fanfare. But those who recognized the handwriting knew this wasn't just a collectible. It was a window into the soul of one of the world's most beloved figures. Unlike the polished statements of palace life, this letter was raw, handwritten, and unmistakably real. Why had it stayed hidden all these years? Some believe Collison kept it as a sacred trust, protecting the words Diana never meant for the public, preserving them out of respect for a woman who once lived her life under relentless scrutiny. The fact that this letter remained untouched for over 2 decades only adds to its weight. Diana wasn't just the people's princess. She was a mother first. And in this letter, that truth becomes impossible to ignore. This wasn't a message written for the cameras. It was a mother reaching out to her son through the noise, through the heartbreak, through history itself. What did she write? What emotions spilled onto that page in a rare moment of solitude? And how do those words change what we thought we knew about her final years? One letter, one mother, one son, and a message the world was never supposed to see. Before we uncover what Diana's letter revealed, we need to step back and understand the life that shaped her words. Diana's dual life. She was the face of fairy tales and tabloid covers, but behind the royal image, Diana was living 2 very different lives. One was public, dazzling, and meticulously staged. The other was private, quiet, and often painful. And through her letters, we see just how deeply divided those worlds were. To the public, she was the Princess of Wales, graceful at state banquets, warm on hospital visits, and radiant on royal tours. She wore the crown with elegance, yet off-camera. Diana was still a young woman navigating a marriage she hadn't fully chosen, under the weight of palace rules and relentless media attention. One letter to Violet Collison, dated July 8, 1981, just weeks before her wedding, offers a rare look behind the curtain. Rather than share royal details or scripted lines, Diana jokes about the chaos of wedding prep. Everyone's racing around, fixing last-minute details, but the bride's keeping her cool. It's not just charming, it's real. It's the voice of a 20-year-old trying to keep her sense of humor while stepping into a role that would redefine her life. That same voice, playful, vulnerable, and sincere, would resonate through the years in her notes to Collison. Even as Diana became a global icon, her letters stayed grounded. They weren't about photo ops or public statements. They were about motherhood, about navigating pressure, and above all, about protecting her sons from the storm she couldn't escape. Diana's life was split between royal duty and personal devotion, and the tension between those two roles is carved in ink. Her letters don't ask for sympathy. They reflect resilience. They show a woman who smiles for the cameras while quietly fighting for her identity, her sanity, and her children. So when we uncover a letter meant only for William, we're not just reading royal history. We're hearing a mother's voice, shaped by everything she endured and everything she hoped to shield him from. A mother's heart. Long before royal titles or global fame, Diana's most important role was clear. She was a mother first. And in the letter recently uncovered, that truth is undeniable. It's not about palaces or protocol, it's about love, raw and unfiltered. From the moment she held William in her arms on June 21, 1982, Diana redefined royal motherhood. At just 20 years old, she tossed out centuries of stiff tradition. While royal custom leaned on nannies and distance, Diana leaned in. She chose to breastfeed, handpicked his name, and insisted on being part of every milestone, not for appearances, but because she wanted to be there. That commitment wasn't something she announced at press conferences. It lived in her letters. In her notes to Violet Collison, Diana captured the moments that truly mattered. William's clumsy first steps, the endless questions he asked, the quiet pride she felt watching him grow into his own. These weren't royal updates. They were a mother's reflections, written in quiet defiance of a system that often put image over intimacy. And when Harry arrived in 1984, that same devotion deepened. Even as public duties piled up, Diana kept writing. Short notes, sometimes scribbled between engagements, were filled with warmth and worry. She talked about the boys' laughter, their mischief, and her wish that they would grow up kind, grounded, and unshaken by the life they were born into. She didn't just want to raise future royals, she also wanted to raise good men. That was her quiet mission. And for William, especially as the heir to the throne, she hoped to shield him from the weight she knew too well. So, what does this lost letter reveal? It's not just words on paper. It's a mother leaving behind her heart. One final message filled with the same hope, love, and quiet strength that guided every choice she made. Defying the crown. Diana didn't just challenge the royal system, she rewrote the rulebook on how a future king should be raised. Her boldest legacy wasn't rebellion, it was choosing normalcy for William and Harry in a world where everything screamed tradition. While past royals were raised behind palace walls by nannies and tutors, Diana took a different path. She wanted her sons to know real life, to feel it, and to understand the people they might one day serve. Her approach wasn't about appearances, it was about empathy. One of her earliest and most shocking moves, enrolling William in a local nursery school near Kensington Palace. Specifically, Prince William attended Mrs. Minor's nursery school in a Victorian row house just 5 minutes from Kensington Palace, where he lived with his parents. This decision was seen as a way to give him a more normal childhood experience, and it was influenced by Diana's own background working as a nursery assistant. Good Housekeeping reports that the decision to have William develop his finger painting skills among commoners showed the influence of Diana, Princess of Wales, who had worked in a nursery school herself when she was just a lady. To the public, it was a small thing. To the monarchy, it was a quiet earthquake. There she was, walking her son to school, hand in hand, no pomp, no fanfare, just a mother blending into the world outside the gates. But she didn't stop there. Diana brought her sons to amusement parks, stood in line with them, and even treated them to fast food. It wasn't for show. These were real moments, lessons in being human. She wanted her boys to laugh, to explore, and to grow up understanding a world beyond gold-trimmed walls. In her private letters to Violet Collison, Diana often shared joy in these moments, William giggling over a happy meal, or Harry chasing pigeons in the park. These weren't just memories. They were intentional acts of defiance, teaching her sons that compassion and humility weren't optional, even in a crown. So what does this have to do with the letter she wrote to William? Everything. That hidden letter, buried for years, wasn't just a note. It was part of a bigger message, one she'd been shaping all along through her actions, her choices, and the life she gave her sons. She wasn't trying to raise princes, she was trying to raise good men. And that, more than any title, was the future she believed in. Like this moment in Diana's story, tap the like button to help more people discover the legacy behind the crown. The letter's silent journey. When Princess Diana's lost letter to Prince William resurfaced, it wasn't with royal fanfare. It was hidden in plain sight, quietly listed in an auction catalog. No headlines or press release, just one handwritten note, nearly 3 decades old, tucked between other forgotten papers. But this wasn't just any letter. It was Diana's voice, frozen in time, finally heard. The letter had likely been stored away among the belongings of Violet Collison, Diana's longtime confidant and former housekeeper. Collison had known Diana since her earliest years, long before the crowds, the cameras, and the crown. If anyone could be trusted with something so personal, it was her. And for years, she kept it safe, away from the world's eyes. This wasn't official palace correspondence destined for the royal archives. It wasn't meant to be part of the public record. It was personal, a mother's message to her son. And that made its quiet discovery all the more powerful. Its appearance at auction, handled delicately, with minimal attention, reflected the very tone Diana had used. Private, heartfelt, and deeply human. It was similar to earlier moments when her letters surfaced in the early 2000s, each one revealing more about the woman behind the royal title. But this one stood apart. This letter wasn't about charity work or public duties. It was about William. Why did it remain hidden for so long? Maybe it was loyalty. Maybe it was timing. Or maybe Violet simply knew it wasn't the kind of thing you shared lightly. And yet, the moment it appeared, questions rushed in. What had Diana written in those final, quiet years? What future did she imagine for William? What truth had she hidden between the lines? For nearly 30 years, this letter sat silently, waiting. Not forgotten, but protected. And now, as it steps into the light, it's not just a page of history. It's a bridge from a mother's heart to a son's legacy. A moment of joy. Of all the royal memories, it's often the smallest ones that leave the deepest mark. And one birthday surprise for Prince William did just that. On his 7th birthday in 1989, Diana turned a simple afternoon into a lifelong memory. Not with diamonds or fanfare, but with roaring motorbikes and the laughter of children. In a letter dated June 21st, written on official Kensington Palace stationery, Diana personally thanked Sergeant George Plum of the Special Escort Group for organizing the motorbike display. Her message was warm and full of gratitude. Your team's show today filled the children and their mothers with such happiness. I can't thank you enough. But what made the letter truly unforgettable were the wobbly signatures scrawled underneath. William's and Harry's. 2 tiny autographs full of innocence and joy. This wasn't a staged event or a photo op. It was Diana being exactly who she always wanted to be, a hands-on mother, creating moments of happiness away from the rigid expectations of royal life. According to biographer Andrew Morton, Diana put careful thought into experiences like these. She wanted William and Harry to grow up knowing the joy of being regular kids, even if just for a day. The loud engines, the cheers from classmates, the adrenaline of the show. It was the kind of birthday party that made headlines in their hearts, not in the press. Letters like the one to Sergeant Plum offer rare windows into that softer world Diana built out behind the palace walls. They weren't just thank you notes, they were snapshots of a mother's pride, small proof that love often shows itself in the simplest acts. And if this much warmth could come from a single birthday memory, imagine the weight of the private letter Diana wrote just for William. What other joys, lessons, or hopes might it hold? If that 1989 note captured a single sunny afternoon, her lost letter might reveal the full weather of her heart, shielding her sons. Before anyone called her the People's Princess, Diana was simply a mother, one determined to protect her sons from the very spotlight that had once nearly consumed her. From the moment cameras followed her every move, Diana knew what unchecked media attention could do. She'd lived it, the tabloid frenzy, the paparazzi ambushes, the constant pressure. But when it came to William and Harry, she refused to let them become headlines before they were ready to be heard. Instead, Diana struck a careful balance. She organized photo calls for major milestones, William's first day of school, family ski trips, or holidays at Balmoral. These staged appearances gave the public a glimpse, just enough to satisfy curiosity, while buying her boys something far more valuable: privacy. It wasn't just a PR strategy, it was a mother's shield. Diana also worked closely with schools like Wetherby and Ludgrove, choosing them not just for academic reputation, but for their ability to offer William and Harry a sense of normalcy. These were places where they could run, laugh, and learn without flashbulbs interrupting their day. In letters to close friends like Violet Collison, Diana often expressed how relieved she felt, knowing William was thriving out of the spotlight. And when she sat down for that now iconic Panorama interview in November 1995, watched by over 22 million people, she made it clear: the media had taken a toll. She spoke not just about herself, but about what it meant to raise children under that microscope. That interview wasn't just a confession, it was conviction. Every step she took, every quiet decision made away from the palace gates, was part of a promise: to let her sons be boys before they were princes. So what did Diana put in that lost letter to William? Was it another effort to guard him, this time with words instead of actions? Was it a final reminder that, no matter how loud the world got, her love was always louder? A marriage in ruins. It was the moment the fairy tale cracked, and the entire world was watching. By the early 1990s, Diana's marriage to Prince Charles was no longer a secret struggle. What had begun as a storybook union had unraveled into something far more painful and public. In 1992, the couple officially separated, and what followed was a media storm filled with rumors, betrayals, and heartbreak. But through it all, Diana kept one focus: her sons. While the world dissected every headline, Diana was quietly writing letters, often to her close friend Violet Collison, expressing her deepest concerns not for herself, but for William and Harry. William was just 10, and Harry was only 8 when the split became public. Diana knew they didn't need more headlines. They needed reassurance. And then came the bombshell. On national television in 1994, Prince Charles admitted to being unfaithful. The confession sent shockwaves through the public, but for Diana, it was another wound layered on years of emotional strain. Just a year later, she gave her side of the story in the Panorama interview that gripped over 22 million viewers. She spoke candidly about the loneliness, the pressure, and the loss of self, but always returned to one point. Her sons were her strength. She wanted them to grow up with empathy, with emotional intelligence, and above all, with a sense of purpose that wasn't confined by their royal titles. Diana's parenting wasn't about damage control. It was about building resilience. During this storm, she never missed their school events. She showed up at sports days, helped with homework, and stayed present, refusing to let the royal scandal define their childhood. So, what did she write to William in that lost letter during this emotional whirlwind? Was it a final lesson? A quiet reminder of who he was beyond the palace walls? Whatever it contains, one thing is certain. It came from a mother who, even as her world fell apart, was determined to keep her sons whole. Know someone who should hear this part of Diana's story? Share it with a friend and keep her voice alive. A legacy of compassion. She may have stepped away from the royal spotlight, but Diana's mission only grew louder. After her divorce in August 1996, Princess Diana was no longer bound by royal protocol, and instead of retreating, she leaned in, using her freedom to focus on what mattered most: her sons and the people the world often forgot. This was the Diana who walked through a minefield in Angola, dressed in body armor, not for show, but to make the world pay attention to a crisis too easy to ignore. Her humanitarian work after the divorce wasn't about headlines, it was personal. Whether it was supporting AIDS patients or advocating for landmine victims, Diana chose causes that aligned with her heart, not her former title. But perhaps her greatest mission was shaping the character of a future king. She didn't just talk to William about compassion, she showed him. One powerful moment remembered by her former bodyguard, Ken Wharf, was when she brought young William to Centre Point, a London shelter for homeless youth. She wanted him to meet people his age who had nothing, no homes, no families, no safety nets. It wasn't a press event. It was a quiet lesson in perspective. Diana believed that leadership without empathy meant nothing. Her letters from this time, especially those sent to trusted friends like Violet Collison, revealed her deep pride in William. She saw signs that he wasn't just listening, he was learning, that he would one day lead not just with authority, but with understanding. These moments of purposeful education revealed Diana's determination to raise a future king who valued service over status, a theme that pulsed through her private correspondence. How did she articulate these hopes for William in her lost letter? What vision for his future did she entrust to those hidden words? The letter, still veiled in mystery, promised to echo her belief that true leadership meant standing with the vulnerable, a legacy she wove into her son's heart long before the world knew its depth. Whispers of danger. One letter sent shockwaves through the public, but it wasn't the lost one. It was the one where Diana warned she might not survive. In October 1995, amid growing isolation and relentless media pressure, Princess Diana wrote a private note that later stunned the world. In it, she claimed someone was planning a car accident to end her life. The handwriting was verified. The details? Still debated. But the fear behind those words was real, and it revealed just how unsafe she felt in the final years of her life. The letter came to light through her former butler, Paul Burrell, and while many biographers, including Tina Brown, caution against drawing hard conclusions, they agree on one thing. Diana no longer trusted the world around her. Not the press, not the palace, maybe not even her own circle. But what worried her most was her sons. Her letters from that period, especially those sent to close confidants like Violet Collison, often returned to one theme: William and Harry's future. She feared what the spotlight would do to them, especially William, who was destined to carry the weight of the crown. She wanted him to be strong, but not hardened, empathetic, but not naive. According to Andrew Morton, Diana's protective instincts had never been sharper. Her life felt increasingly fragile, and she knew her time might be limited. So she poured those feelings into paper: quiet warnings, heartfelt advice, and raw truths. Which leads to the question, what exactly did she write to William in that final, missing letter? If the 1995 note exposed her deepest fears, this private message to her son likely carried her final wishes, not just for his safety, but for the kind of man she hoped he'd become. A son raised not just for a title, but to survive a system that nearly broke her. And if those words are ever made public, they might offer the most unfiltered look into Diana's state of mind and her motherly instincts, just before everything changed. The letter's voice. When Diana's long-lost letter to Prince William finally resurfaced, it wasn't the words that made headlines. It was the voice behind them. Written in the early 1990s during one of the most difficult periods of her life, the letter captured the quiet power of a mother who saw storms coming. Though still kept largely private, with only fragments known through auction records and family disclosures, what we do know reflects the same tone Diana used in other personal notes: warm, honest, and unfiltered by palace protocol. Handwritten, likely on the same Kensington Palace stationery she used for her other letters, the message was never meant to be a royal directive. It was a mother's plea for her son to stay grounded, to lead with compassion, and to never lose sight of the people behind the crown. Biographer Andrew Morton notes that many of Diana's letters from that time carried a sense of urgency. She knew her life wasn't just chaotic, it was fragile. And that urgency came through in how she spoke to William, especially about his future. She didn't want him just to wear a crown. She wanted him to carry a conscience. Drawing from her known correspondence, including a 1989 birthday note and her letters to close confidants, the tone of the lost letter was likely gentle but firm. Diana had seen the damage the royal machine could do. So she wrote to William not just to prepare him for the spotlight, but to make sure it wouldn't swallow him whole. The timing of the letter adds another layer of meaning. It was written when William was still just a child, years before Diana's death, long before he'd fully grasped the pressures he would face. But somehow, she seemed to know, and she wanted him to hear her voice, even if she couldn't be there to guide him. Now, decades later, that voice has returned, not through headlines, but through handwritten words that still echo with love, fear, and hope. A mother's message. A son's inheritance. A son's promise. Of all the stories tied to Diana's legacy, one quiet moment between mother and son still moves millions. After her divorce in 1996, Diana lost the right to be called Her Royal Highness, a painful reminder of how far she'd been pushed from the institution she once embodied. According to those close to her, she confided in her 14-year-old son, telling him it hurt that one day she'd have to curtsy to him. William's reply was simple but powerful. "Don't worry, Mummy. I'll give it back to you when I'm king." That moment, whether word for word or more symbolic, has endured as a promise. A son's vow to honor the woman who raised him, not as a future king, but as a kind human being. Now, with Diana's lost letter finally resurfacing, that sentiment has taken on new meaning. Though the letter's contents remain mostly private, it's clear from her past writings that she wanted William to rule with heart, not just tradition. She urged him to stand up for the vulnerable, to be more than just a royal figurehead. And in many ways, he's done exactly that. William's work today speaks volumes. His focus on mental health, especially through the Heads Together initiative, and his continued support for organizations like Centerpoint, the same charity Diana introduced him to, shows a man deeply rooted in his mother's values. He's not just fulfilling a royal duty, he's continuing her mission. The rediscovery of her letter didn't just bring back her voice. It reminded the world that Diana's influence didn't end in 1997. It lives on in the choices William makes, in how he raises his own children, and in the kind of king he's quietly preparing to be. Her words were never just a goodbye. They were a guide. And William, through every cause he supports and every step he takes, continues to keep that long-ago promise. To follow more stories like this one, and uncover the voices history tried to silence, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.